Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Dr. Maiysha, and this is the Behind Beliefs and Behaviors podcast, where we get into the root cause with yours truly, Dr. Maiysha. I am so excited about this new podcast, and I want to give you a little insider's view of where this comes from. So, first of all, for those of you who don't know who I am a family physician, integrative medicine specialized, and I have been a physician since 2001, graduated from my residency in 2004, and have always been sort of outside of the box. And so I went into integrative medicine because I'm always about getting to the root cause of what's behind our behaviors. And my background is in psychology, and so I have just always been fascinated by the brain and why we do the things we do. Now, perhaps that has to do with a little bit of my background growing up. I grew up in a home where I witnessed domestic abuse, domestic violence, and I often didn't understand why a person would hurt another person as a child. And so I think at the subconscious level, that sort of drove me to be drawn to psychology when I was in college. Fast forward, I take my first abnormal psychology class and then subsequently behavioral psychology class, and I was hooked. And from then on, most of the listening that I did, most of the interests that I had were centered around understanding why. Now, fast forward to medical school, the most interesting classes for me were physiology and pathophysiology. Why? Because it answered that question that always lingers in my head. Why? And as I went into my clinicals and graduated and went to residency, what I became very fascinated with is people's behaviors around well-being, people's behaviors around health. And what I came to discover is that most of the resistance that was happening with people's well-being, with the way people engaged with eating healthier or approaching exercise, or whether to take a medicine or not take a medicine, what route to choose, whether it was traditional or more holistic or an integrated approach, all centered around what they believed to be true. And a lot of what I recognized in it, how I differed at that time from a lot of my colleagues, was that I spent a lot of time asking patients, why do you believe this? Or what is it that prevents you from eating healthier? Why is it that you choose to not exercise? Or why don't you exercise? Or why don't you eat healthy? Like, what is behind that? And oftentimes it was a simple belief that when I reframed the belief and then gave a resource, it would blow their minds, and the behavior would almost instantly change. And that was before I ended up training as a coach. That was before I trained in NLP and unconscious mind work. That was even before that happened. And so from that point, and that's just in clinical medicine, being a physician, I really started leaning into this why and leveraging that question to help elicit and bring out the beliefs behind behavior. And so now a lot of my work, and I'll share a little bit more about my journey in a different episode, but a lot of the work that I've done in clinical medicine, when I transitioned out and began coaching other physicians and healthcare professionals who were burned out, a lot of being able to transform people was understanding the why, understanding what's behind the belief. And so I wanted to begin to share these conversations with people from all over the world. And over the years, I've done various radio shows, various podcasts, and have been able to touch on these in some way, form, or fashion, either by myself or either with a host or a guest on my own shows. But driving down the street one day, it came to me, what if I created a show that was all about that? So that is what led me to start this new podcast that centers around really getting to the root of what's behind specific beliefs and behaviors across various contexts. And so I hope that you enjoy this podcast, and I invite you to go ahead and subscribe now, because we're going to be having some juicy conversations. And I'm going to share in a few short episodes over the next couple of episodes my journey, and then we're going to get right into it. Please share this episode, leave us a review, and subscribe. And I do look forward to seeing you on each episode of Behind Beliefs and Behaviors.